The planet is heating up.
The oceans are becoming filled with plastic.
Change starts now.
Change starts now.
We're on a countdown
To zero waste. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
This is the Zero Waste Countdown Podcast. Here's your host, Laura Nash.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Zero Waste Countdown podcast and radio show. I am recording here in Philadelphia at the New Metrics Conference, and with me for this episode is Renée Yardley. She is the Senior Vice President of Sustana Group. Renée, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
So I'm really excited to talk to you because you are in Sustana Group, and it's all about recycling paper and making new products out of that recycled paper, right?
That's correct.
Awesome. So can you tell me a little bit about what you make, the products and everything?
Okay, so the Sustana Group, we have 3 facilities. So there's 2 parts to our business. One is the fiber part of our business. So in the fiber part of our business, we recycle millions of tons of paper into pulp that is used in the paper industry and the food packaging industry. And so that's one half of the business. And then on the other half of the business is Roll-In Papers, which is part of the Sustana Group. And at Roll-In Papers, we make recycled papers. So we have 100% recycled papers and 30% recycled papers. So we take our pulp and we make paper on it. And we also, from our Sustana fiber facilities, we also supply other paper makers with recycled fibers to use in the paper making and food packaging papers.
So there's food packaging. Is there regular kind of packaging? Like, do you do cardboard or anything like that for like mail and stuff?
No, we don't do that. It's a bleached pulp, so it's going more into white. But we recycle the cartons as well, and we have some pilot projects where we're looking at that. It's interesting because the packaging industry right now is one that a lot of customers are coming to us and talking about recycling and how they close the loop on the packaging.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So is there kind of a move to get away from plastic at all that you're seeing?
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
So a lot of customers, I was just on a panel here at New Metrics on the circular value chain. And so we have a lot of customers coming to us that want to talk about closing the loop and circularity. And one of the big conversations that we have around is packaging. So one, they want to look at how they can recycle their own packaging that they're creating, and then how they get their recycled content into packaging.
So with paper, can you do the closed loop like much easier than plastic? Because we know that plastic kind of downgrades, but with paper, can you keep recycling it?
Reuse the fibers in paper about 7 times before the fiber becomes too short and it's no longer usable to make paper again. But definitely the paper-based industry is good for the circular economy.
Mm-hmm. And that's a lot too, 7 times.
Yes,
if you think about
it. Yes, you think about it, right? So, and the circular economy is all about eliminating waste and better use of resources, right? So, and paper has one of the highest recovery rates out there for much higher than plastic. When I done research into that, because I'm obviously more focused on the paper industry. So, we recover about 60%, and those are the U.S. statistics from American Forest and Paper Association. And so it's, like I said, it's one of the materials that has the highest recovery rates out there. So, and we still want to make it higher.
Yeah. And so when we make paper, just for listeners who are listening and might not know how paper is made, everybody knows it comes from trees.
Initially, but our source actually is the urban forest. So we are not, when we're making 100% recycled paper, so all of the paper has come from, for example, sorted office papers, and so we take that, we make it into pulp, and we make it back into paper. So we're a little different in the industry in that we don't manage forest lands on there. So we're not doing any of that front end process there.
So you don't even need to mix new wood paper, like
new fiber? Yes, we do.
So you do have to use a little bit new.
We would purchase that from other manufacturers. So in our 30% recycled, so 70% of that is going to be new virgin, what we call virgin pulp. So that's the first time that it's been used. So we're purchasing that from other pulp manufacturers.
Yeah, I know plastic has to do that with a lot of different things when you're recycling it. You need like some new stuff with the old stuff
that goes in, yeah,
to make it like workable. Yeah. And there are some like sustainability goals that I saw on your website. So can you talk a bit about any of those?
Yeah. So actually, we've just come off of a whole year where we did our sustainability strategy. So we did the materiality assessment for that, and we used the UN SDGs as our framework, right, to decide
sustainable development goals.
That's correct. Sorry. Yeah, we're at New Metrics is like alphabet soup here, right? So it's we use a lot of acronyms here, but yes. So we use the framework of the UN SDGs when we were doing our materiality, if I could say that, as assessment, and so that we could find the areas that we would have the most impact. Because you can't focus on everything. You can't if you put too many goals out there, you'll never achieve any of them, and they're all long-term goals. So when we did that impact assessment, so the three areas that we're focusing on is, number one is the environment. Number two is and what impact, and then as paper maker, that was always in our DNA when we were looking at sustainability. The number one area that we were always focusing on was the environment. So we sort of felt that we have an impact on that. The next one is sustainable communities. And the third one is the third pillar of our goals is the circular value economy. And so then we set very specific goals under that. So for example, in the circular value economy is like, by 2030, we don't want to put any waste into landfills, because when we're recycling the paper, for example, in our fiber mills, then you will have byproducts of the recycling process that we can't use anymore. So then we're taking and we're landfilling that. It's a small percentage of the whole process, but it still does go to landfill. So we're working on ways that we wouldn't landfill by 2030 is our goal.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
And the facilities are like, is that the main focus of the facilities? Because I think the facilities are like operating. Are you operating towards zero waste, or are you operating toward like lowering emissions of the facilities, or? So
that would fall under the environmental goals. So we set specific targets under the environmental goals. So the lowering of overall emissions. When we did our LCA, it's hard for us because a lot of our emissions come from Scope 3 transportation, right? So it's difficult for us to do that, but looking at our footprint and trying to bring those down. Water usage is a number one. The paper making has intense water usage. So, recycling the water, we already do that, but how we become more efficient at that. So a lot of the specific environmental goals are related to that.
So I don't really know how to recycle paper. So I think I've seen maybe videos of people taking paper and like soaking it and then drying it again.
So we have an industrial process to do that. So yes, the paper comes in as fibers. So you're getting, for example, sorted office papers coming in. And so we use those and then we chop those all up and we put them in I'll call it a bath that includes chemicals. And then we break it all down and then we dry it partially, so that we make, there's two different kinds of pulp. So we don't fully dry the pulp. We have what's called a wet lap pulp that we ship off to the paper makers. And then you add some chemicals in there, and we have to make sure of the sustainability of those chemicals, and then we turn it back into sheets of pulp that can be reused to make paper.
So are you buying the paper from material recycling facilities like those MRFs?
We from collection agencies, right? So it's sorted office papers. So we work with different companies that purchase those sorted office papers. We do work with some, we have some specific programs in the U.S., for example, with the Carton Council in Wisconsin, where they collect cartons for food packaging cartons, Alpine Recycling in Denver, and then they bring those to the Wisconsin facility. So we use that as fiber as well. We're in Canada, for example, we're not using the municipal recycling facilities at this because with the single stream recycling,
It would be contaminated.
It's too
right?
contaminated for us to use in the process. But those are definitely conversations that is, particularly with the ban of China, has made on a lot of the waste going into China, right? So those are conversations that have started to be had with some of the municipal ones. Particularly, we have a facility near Quebec City, and so we're starting to look at that now, how we could take alternate sources of fiber.
Mm-hmm. But the office fiber must just be very easy to take because it would just be paper.
It's just paper. Well, it's not always just paper, right?
No?
So you'll get people throw a lot of things that get, like the Post-it notes that
are they a problem?
They are a problem. You'll get elastics in there. You'll get plastic that because even in the office buildings, in our office buildings we put different bins for people to recycle, and you still get contamination.
It's so hard to
paper clips. That was the word.
That's what I was thinking actually.
Paper clips go. So you get a number of things, and if you ever visited one of our pulp facilities, you'll see that there's plastic, there's metal, there's glass that gets in there. So it still gets contaminated, but
hopefully not like food, because that would be
well with the cartons, and that's where our Wisconsin facility is different. We have technology to deal with. For example, we can recycle cups there, so we have the ability to
like the coffee cups.
So we can pull out the plastic liner barrier that's in there and then recycle the fibers.
So. I want to stand up and clap right now because that is such a big problem in our world, right?
Yes.
So that's very amazing. And so I would assume that the cartons are similar. So I think in America they use more jugs for milk, but we have the bags, of course.
Yes.
Which is kind of unique, I think, to Canada. But we typically use the cartons. So my understanding is that they're a fiber, and then they're covered in polyethylene terephthalate, like a PET lining. So at the Wisconsin facility, are you?
Yes, we can
separating the PET.
Yes, we can take that out and then use the fiber.
Wow. And then what do you do with the PET? Does that have to be?
That has to be landfilled. And that's what I was saying, part of our circular economy goals, right, is to find a use for that.
Yeah. So is that do you know how it's separated? Is it a trade secret? Is it boiling?
Within the process, when they're breaking it down, it pulls apart, and then we the plastic lining will come apart. And I just, if any of our engineers are listening, they're going crazy listening to me. But trying to simplify it, and the plastic lining comes out, and then we gather the plastic lining out before we continue on with the process.
That's amazing, because I've always wondered how they do that. And I think my listeners are going to be pretty happy, like I am, to hear that there is a process to recycle coffee cups, because that's one of the things we do on Zero Waste. I say there's the big three. So beverage bottles, the plastic ones, it's nice to eliminate those so you don't have to deal with them. Coffee cups is an easy one to get rid of because you can bring your own, and then plastic bags, of course. So it's very nice to hear that we can, because I don't think we're going to get rid of the coffee cups, the to-go coffee cups anytime soon, because they're very valuable to coffee chains. And I guess you're working with Starbucks on that, right?
So actually on our website, there's a video called Cup to Cup that your listeners can take a look at. It's sustanagroup.com. And so basically what we did it was a proof of concept, right? So Starbucks gathered up the cups. We got them to our Wisconsin facility. We recycled the cups, and then we in turn provided that fiber to their cup stop maker and converter to make them back into cups. And there is recycled content in Starbucks cups, and that video shows you all how that works. The challenge is to do it on a large scale.
Mm-hmm. So they're in North America, or everywhere, or this is a pilot project?
This was a pilot project in the United States that we did for them to prove that it can be done, right? So it can be done. The challenge is that a lot of the recycling facilities don't take cups, right? So people don't do that. So I've also seen in Canada, Tim Hortons is there are certain restaurants out there where they're collecting those cups for recycling. I was in Kitchener, and I did see that. So
you've seen someone collecting Tim Hortons cups.
Yes, I think I think that again, I think it's on a small scale, and they're they're doing some proof of concept on that. So,
good.
Yeah. So, and that's really one of the things that, I think that people are looking to business. The consumers are demanding more, so they see all the waste out there. They want a solution and they want transparency. And so the companies are really looking to their supply chain to find solutions to these issues that are out there. And it's really consumer driven. So this was an example of what can be done out there to find solutions. And I think business is going to be the key going forward.
Me too.
To finding environmental solutions.
Absolutely, yeah. I say that a lot, and I try and focus on businesses because it's them that are producing it, and it's them who can make the most change and do the most wonderful things, and they also have the money to fund the changes, and so very, very good things happening. And I think people might start getting tired of seeing the Tim Hortons cups on the side of the road, which isn't necessarily Tim Hortons' fault, but they have to take some consumer responsibility too. So it's the customer or the business, but it would be nice to get them kind of out of the roads a lot, so hopefully we see that.
I don't know. I haven't seen that. I just use that because I did see that in somewhere. It has nothing to do with our particular company, but I did see that. So I'm sure that they're looking at that as well. So if we've done the proof of concept on one side, so we know that it can be done.
Yeah, maybe they will use you guys or something to look into that. So okay, we're at Metrics, so we're talking a lot about reporting and stuff. So you do the life cycle assessment?
Yes, we have done a life cycle assessment for both our fiber facility and our paper facility.
So what is that like? What does that look like? Can you walk us through?
It's very detailed, science-based assessment of your impact on the environment. And so, we boil that down to digestible things. The actual report that they put out is about 150 pages of what your greenhouse gas emission impact is. And we actually, when we did our life cycle assessment, we used a company called Agico, and we went further than was required with the life cycle assessment. So we are also assessing our impact on human health, on biodiversity, and really making a comprehensive assessment with the impact of our products on the environment.
So for any listeners who don't know what a life cycle assessment is, I guess it's a little bit self-explanatory. So I'm assuming that you are maybe looking at a cup, and then you were looking at the beginnings and the material that's made and transportation, all the stuff right till the end of use?
It's right to the end of use. So we're looking at our own operations, right? Mm-hmm. So we make papers, so we're looking at the impact of our manufacturing operations on the environment right through to end of use with those papers. Mm-hmm. So the paper that we manufacture. So we're not taking it out to our customer level and what they're doing with it once it's out there, and emissions, biodiversity, human health, all the impacts that we would have on the environment.
Mm-hmm. So we know that your group is sustainable and that it's doing good things. So is there a way of us going to the grocery store and seeing that maybe you're involved with the carton that we buy or something? Is there any way to know?
No, not really. So we're a business to business organization. So we're selling our products into other businesses. There's very few examples of where you would actually be able to find our branded products. Mm-hmm. So particularly on the fiber side, you will never find our branded products because it's part of the supply chain for paper makers and food packaging makers, right? So you would never find that. On the roll and paper side, you could find some of our branded products in the stores. So if you went, for example, on the Staples website, we sell our copy paper that we make on there, but mostly it's going into business to business applications, which is, printers, things like that. Sometimes the printers will put that it's printed on that particular product because it's 100% recycled paper. So then you would know, but otherwise, unless you're going to go to, for example, Costco in Canada has our Enviro copy paper. So you could go into Costco and find that. You could go onto Staples and find the copy paper, but most of the applications you wouldn't find.
So you can get 100% recycled paper?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes, you copy paper for your home printer. So yes, we have that.
And what about toilet paper? That can be 100% recycled too, content?
I'm not as knowledgeable about the tissue industry. So we do, from our fiber facilities, we do sell tissue grade of fiber. So it goes in there. In North America, there are not a lot of companies out there. It's becoming more and more where they're using recycled content in toilet paper or tissue for example, but that's more prevalent elsewhere in the world, and it's more prevalent in the away from home as well. So for your home usage, people buy one thing, and then for away from home, they'll buy another.
Offices or stadiums and like that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because we talked about that before on the show about how do you get toilet paper that's not wrapped in plastic? Because when you see it in the grocery store, it usually comes in plastic and maybe another plastic wrapping, so 2 plastic wrappings. Mm-hmm. So there is places on Amazon where you can find it. It just comes in a box, and then it comes in a paper wrap, like each roll is individual wrapped. So it's kind of helpful.
It's funny that you bring that up, because I just read an article on there's a niche market out there that is in North America that's looking for 100% recycled tissue. So
without the plastic.
Without the plastic, and it's mostly I don't know what retailers would do. They didn't mention that in the article, but they were talking about smaller manufacturers that were doing that. And it was almost like those the club programs that you would sign up for, and then they'd ship them to you. So
yeah, or like a subscription, maybe
a subscription.
And so I saw that like some of the packaging that you make is food contact packaging.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
So how does that work? Because wouldn't food kind of like soak into the paper or like...
So the fiber that we make at our Wisconsin facility is FDA approved. So they can use that fiber in the food packaging that they're making, and then they treat it once it's there to with special, I hate to use the word chemicals, but with a layers for grease resistance.
Okay.
So that it doesn't fall apart when you're using it.
Yeah. Would that be like eggshell cartons or something? Maybe they don't have
that's
coating.
molded. That's molded fiber. So
Okay.
the pulp can go into a molded fiber carton, and a number of quick service restaurants are using molded fiber containers, and then also the lightweight packaging as well. So those are things like sandwich wraps, for example. So you go into
the paper sandwich wraps.
The paper sandwich wraps, exactly. So our fiber can go into that, and those papers, they use a special technology to treat them so that the paper fiber does not soak up the liquid or grease.
But it's like a safe.
It's absolutely
FDA approved.
FDA approved. So our fiber has to be FDA approved.
Yeah.
In that whole process, everything has to be approved for direct food contact.
Mm-hmm. So can I ask you a couple questions about your career and how you got into sustainability?
Sure.
Cool. So how did you get into this role?
Into this particular role. So I've been in the paper industry for 18 years, and I came to Sustana. It'll be 4 years in December, and so I had been with my other company for 14 years, and I was really attracted to. I initially went to Roland Papers because my whole background was in the paper industry.
Is that like a big paper company, Roland?
Roland is part of the Sustana Group.
Okay.
And so it's so I initially went there, and I was very attracted by the whole recycling sustainability story. I had done another master's degree and really focused on sustainability marketing.
Oh,
and so I wanted to. The opportunity presented itself, and I believe that we can have such an impact, and so to go and work for a company that is in that sustainability space is what attracted me to go to Roland, which is now the Sustana Group. So,
is there a sustainable marketing program somewhere?
So there was many courses. So 18 years ago when I was doing my MBA, that wasn't even a focus, right?
Yeah.
So I had gone back to school, and so there's many schools that offer sustainability certificates, and the program that I was doing had, as part of the master's program, they had sustainability marketing, and so I took a look at that, and then I thought I can put that to use at Roland.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, there's so many different skills we can have to be sustainable. And
absolutely. And more there are programs out there that are focusing on sustainability. Like I said, when I initially did my MBA, it wasn't even a consideration, right? So, you always heard that the business of business is business, right? And profits, right? Well, in the new economy, it's more than making profits. It's your impact on society as well. So, and it's not just from an environmental standpoint, it's from the social and governance aspects as well.
Do you find you're seeing that more in America than Canada, though? Because sometimes I think I am, but maybe it's just because the population's 10 times bigger, so...
honestly, that's hard for me to say because, our businesses are so intertwined. So it's all I'm talking about. So my perception would probably be a little bit biased. I'm in that sustainable business space. Mm-hmm. So that's what, and our customers are like-minded, right? So we have a blog with we call Green Champions. And, we're talking about all of the sustainability initiatives of our customers, and there's a balance. We've had Patagonia, for example, as a green champion, but we've also had all the Air Canada as a green champion, and Cirque du Soleil, based out of Montreal, and all the initiatives that these companies are taking. So I don't see any difference between the two markets.
Awesome. Oh, well, this has been great, Renee. So thank you so much for sitting down with me and
it's been wonderful
telling us all about this. So thank you. That was Renée Yardley. She's the Senior Vice President of Sustana Group. Did you know you can now find our episodes on YouTube? If you have a YouTube account, please like, subscribe, and comment on there. And if you haven't given us a review on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to your podcasts, please do so. It helps the algorithms push our show up in search results, which means more people will discover the show and more zero waste solutions will be shared around the world from our amazing guests that we've had on the show. I'm a volunteer at my local college radio station, and I don't make very much money, so if you have a few bucks to spare each month, you can sign up and be a patron on Podbean. There's a little reward button you can click on there. I'm also on Patreon, but I want to keep all my content free for everyone instead of putting it behind a paywall, so you also can donate directly on the show's website, zerowastecountdown.com. We are a registered nonprofit in Canada called the Zero Waste Countdown Initiative. Thanks for listening, everybody, and thanks to our listeners in America, Canada, Germany, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, Spain, and wherever else you're tuning in from. Together, we're going to change the world.
Change starts now.
This is the Zero Waste Countdown Podcast.